Hey guys, what is up? Niad here with Film Comics Explained, and we are continuing our exploration into the monsterverse that Legendary Pictures are developing. I love The Birth of Kong, and think the work that Arvid Nelson and Zid are doing on it is beautiful. I was sick and tired of seeing Kong die at the top of the Empire State Building, so being able to see his sheer epicness and might in the recent film and the graphic novel has been exciting. I've been in contact with Zid and will hopefully be organising an interview with him in the next few weeks to get some insight into his work on Kong, his inspirations, and the path that has led him to become such a talented artist. He has also let me know that issue 3 of their Birth of Kong has just come out, and I highly recommend you guys grab yourself a copy. With that in mind, I thought it'd be appropriate to look at Godzilla Awakening, written by Greg Borenstein and Max Borenstein, the screenwriter of the new Godzilla and Skull Island movies. Serving as a prequel to the film, it explores Serizawa's past and previous encounters with Godzilla. I'd like to think that I'm pretty well versed in Godzilla and King Kong. One of my film teachers in Sydney was Helmut Bekaitis, the incredible German-Australian director, actor and screenwriter. We had weekly 2 to 3 hour classes in the film studio, where Helmut would set up a projector and go through his collection of classic and modern films. Beginning with the origins of films with the early silent films, their development over time, up until the introduction of sound, all the way to the present day. We spent a few sessions on Japanese cinema, with a particular look at the works of Ishirō Honda and Akira Kurosawa, regarded as one of the most important and influential filmmakers of all time, with Sanshiro Sugata and the original Seven Samurai, which was adapted into the popular western The Magnificent Seven. Both Honda and Kurosawa were lifelong friends and collaborators. Honda was best known for his kaiju and Tokusatsu films. He was a genius behind the original Godzilla film released in 1954 and many subsequent sequels. I think there have been at least 29 Godzilla films that have been released by Toho. I'd always had a fascination with monsters and creature films, but hearing the passion Bekaitis displayed when describing the incredible influence these two pioneers had on modern cinema and on him personally drew me in further. With the nuclear bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki still fresh in the Japanese consciousness, Godzilla was conceived as a metaphor for devastation caused by nuclear weapons. Over time, the role of Godzilla has changed from a destructive monster to an anti-hero, to simply the lesser of two evils, and vice versa, changing depending on what the narrative required of him. I've since watched about 15 Godzilla films in full, and have loved each of them except the abysmal 1998 Hollywood remake, which had too much Matthew Broderick. I will always cherish those classes, and the knowledge I gained there has helped me shape my understanding of film, and the way it can be used to tell a simple story, or act as a metaphor, like a symbol for a nation in grief. All that aside, our story begins in Tokyo, 1980. Ishiro Serizawa's father has asked him to come home on short notice, and is being cryptic as to why. Serizawa arrives and is asked how much he remembered about his father's work. Ishiro was under the assumption that his father worked for a shipping company and only knew that his colleagues saw him more than he did. His father then says, "What if I told you that my work wasn't shipping?" He reaches into the safe and pulls out a small container. "I need to tell you something, son. Something hard to believe. There are monsters in this world. You were just a baby, so you don't remember. It all began with something no one thought could happen." We head to the day of the Hiroshima nuclear blast, August 6, 1945. You were the first thing I thought of when I first came to after the blast. You and your mother. I barely took notice of the city around me as I ran home. Somehow, I never lost hope. Not even for a minute. Not even when there was no reason to keep holding on to it. And then I saw it. A monster summoned by our own monstrosity. Ishiro doesn't believe his father and suggests that it must have been the smoke or radiation getting to him. His father admits that that was the first thing he had thought until he saw the creature again. "I left you with your grandparents outside Kyoto where it was safe. I had to find a job, some way to build a life for the both of us in this new world." It's a year after the events of Hiroshima, and we can see that Serizawa has joined the Navy. He's seated alone in the cafeteria and is approached by some of the younger lads in baseball gear. "Excuse me, Serizawa-san. I know you hate American baseball, but there's an important game tonight. Will you translate again?" Serizawa had lost his wife to the senseless attack and is furious at the mention of translating. It's at that moment that an alarm begins to ring. The captain notifies them that they have received a distress call from an American military vessel at a nearby island and will be changing course to provide aid. The sailors approach the island, and Serizawa points out the irony that they were now asking them for help but is told that that is what sailors do, as it was the rule of the sea. As they get closer to the island, they hear a monstrous sound ahead. The captain informs his men that the ship has somehow run aground further inland. He's stumped as to how, and insists that they be careful during their search for survivors. We can see a small search party is moving through the local flora. There is a man hiding in a tree above them. As they get below him, he begins to lose his footing and makes a lot of noise, which attracts their attention. One of the sailors picks up a rock and mimics a baseball pitch, striking the man, who falls to the ground. They help him up, and one of them looks at his device, while Serizawa asks him who he is. The man explains it's a Geiger counter, and that something had attacked his ship, before asking them for help. The man runs off with the Japanese soldiers following him. Serizawa then tells one of the men that he is nervous, as the American keeps referring to a something that attacked his ship. It's here that they find the ship, upside down, near the middle of the island. The sailors are confused as to how this could have happened. The man then tells them that he will explain later, before informing them that there are dozens of men below who are still trapped. Serizawa translates this, and we see them trying to come up with a plan. One of them suggests that they use welding gear to cut them free, but is immediately impaled by something. He is pulled up, and we then see a massive tail swing through, knocking the rest of the men off their feet. Serizawa is furious that they weren't warned about this. The American apologizes, but insists that his friends are in danger and they needed to help them before they are crushed. The ship is being torn to shreds up ahead as a few men make their exit and sprint away. The sailors tend to Atu, who is severely injured, while Serizawa looks on at the ship's destruction. You can see more people managing to find a way off the ship. The American sees an opening and suggests that they help. Serizawa asks one of the other American sailors to help his men in getting Nakamura to safety, and we see him agree without hesitation. This allows Serizawa and the American to enter the ship. Once inside, they begin directing the frantic sailors trying to find a way out. The kaiju is showing no mercy as its relentless assaults continue to break the ship apart. They then begin to fly around within the ship as they realize they have been thrown down the mountainside. The ship finally falls down to the ocean. The impact of this causes a massive surge of water to flood through the cracks, knocking the sailors off their feet. Many of them have been incapacitated, and Serizawa is gasping for breath. The American helps him get onto a loose piece of the ship. Serizawa then asks for a straight answer about who he is and what that thing was that just attacked them. Name sure. I don't know, but it's my job to find out. It's been raiding ships all over the Pacific. Serizawa, you handled yourself pretty well out there. How would you consider working for the US government? Unfortunately, that's all that we have time for. I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. I'm curious to hear what you guys think of the story so far. I'm also interested to hear what your favorite Godzilla films are and which ones you disliked. Personally, I think this should have been the Godzilla film that we saw. I still had heaps of fun, but truly think that Serizawa and his family have a deeper connection to the Godzilla mythos than Bryan Cranston, as incredible as he is. As always, it's been a pleasure. Nihat here with Film Comics Explained. Thanks for stopping by.